What is going on, guys? Meteorologist Jonathan Kegges back with you on a Wednesday, 8 days away from Thanksgiving. Boy, I think we're going to need like 2 hours for the show tonight. We have some breaking weather news to get to. If you were watching Matt and Ginger on News 6 tonight, we alluded to that. We're going to get into that in just 1 second, the breaking news. But I want to talk about what we are going to break down over the next only 30 minutes that we have to hang out together. I know I wish we had a lot longer, but cool stuff today. I got to talk to the CEO and founder of a drone company. They do a lot of weather research and a lot of weather instrumentation. And for the first time ever, we got to see video of the Hurricane Hunter aircraft launching one of these drones and then that drone taking controlled flight. And that's the first time, believed anyway, to have video of that happening as it flew into Melissa as a tropical storm at that point. We're going to get into that video coming up in just 1 second. If we have time, I cannot promise that we're going to get to the buzzwords portion of this show, but there is still tomorrow. And if we don't get to that part, we will get to that again tomorrow. So bear with me there. You may have heard a lot about this recently over the past maybe week to 10 days, something called a Sudden Stratospheric warming event. It's happening actually as we speak, or is about to happen. It's related to the Polar Vortex. I call them buzzwords, but they are really a thing. And they do impact our weather, kind of, or at least indirectly. So we're going to get all into that, talk about what the heck Sudden Stratospheric warming event is and the Polar Vortex, if you have heard of them or if you're familiar with that. And then, of course, if we have time, we'll get into some of the comments. Okay, so the breaking news tonight is that we now have a new world record for strongest wind gust ever recorded in a tropical system, tropical cyclone. In this case, it's a hurricane, and it's Hurricane Melissa. So about a month ago, or 5 weeks ago now, give or take, when Melissa was just about to make landfall, the hurricane hunters were doing their thing, collecting data. They use what we call drop sons. And what they do is they drop them out of the Hurricane Hunter aircraft, and it measures wind speed, pressure, humidity, all that stuff from the plane down to the surface. Well, it measured 252 miles per hour just above the surface, so not at the surface completely. So Hurricane Sender goes like, "Hey, wait a minute, that's kind of crazy. We need further testing to see if this in fact is going to be a record." So they send it to a place called NCAR, and they do some research, and they have all this time. They built the thing, the drop zone, and just today, like a few hours ago, it was confirmed that that is a credible reading. So now Hurricane Melissa, the strongest wind gust ever recorded in a tropical cyclone, with wind gusts of 252 miles per hour. That breaks the previous record of 248 miles an hour. That was Typhoon Meji or Megi. I don't know what. It's probably Meji. That was in the Western Pacific in 2010. Anytime you have an Atlantic hurricane rivaling or beating a Western Pacific typhoon, you know it's intense. And as we talked about before, while we were tracking Melissa, Melissa pretty much reached the bounds that Earth can provide in terms of a storm these days. Now, want to be clear about something here. That was it was a couple, I think it was a couple hundred feet up. Let me double check that. I have that. So it wasn't at the surface, but it could have reached that at landfall in some of the higher elevations in Jamaica. 820 feet up. So 820 feet off of the surface is where that reading came in from. So then you have to obviously subtract for the surface, because obviously it's going to decrease a little bit anyway, not much though over the ocean. One thing though, I do want to point out, this was a gust, and that question was asked by Golfing Ferdy. That was a gust. So not maximum sustained winds. You have to actually get the wind gust to be sustained to make it into this category. So the one thing I do want to point out though is that as it stands right now, Melissa is the tied for the second strongest hurricane on record when it comes to maximum sustained winds. What the Hurricane Center does every single year is they put their final reports on every storm that develops. I think they've already gotten I think they're through this at least the B storm already, because there was that quiet period. They were able to start the reanalysis and put their final kind of like, seal of approval and everything, make sure everything was good, make sure all the data was good. They are going to use that because there's been a lot of what I want to say, not controversy, but there's been a lot of talk that in post analysis that Melissa may have actually been stronger than the 185. I think the Hurricane Hunter aircraft that sampled that 185 was not in the strongest quadrant at the time that measurement came in. So, with that wind gust being now official, they're going to use that to determine, did Melissa reach 190? Did Melissa get even stronger than that? So just wild stuff. Just wild stuff. No matter how you slice it. Again, we were watching it all together in real time, but we knew it was a powerhouse. But just crazy the fact that even 800 feet, give or take, above the Earth's surface, above the ocean, it's like that. And it's important to note, the crazy thing is that the elevation, as that storm made landfall, it's not out of the realm of possibilities that there were wind gusts in that realm in the mountains of Jamaica as Hurricane Melissa was making landfall. Wild stuff. Okay, you may have heard of it. The Polar Vortex, Sudden Stratospheric Warming event. That has been used a ton over the past 10 days. We are going to talk about what sudden stratospheric warming is and how it can impact us, kind of, in Central Florida, coming up after this short break. Alrighty, guys, we are back. Jam-packed show tonight. Again, the unexpected breaking news of the wind gust record being confirmed tonight from Hurricane Melissa. If you missed that, 252 miles per hour measured by a dropsonde, 800 feet, give or take, above the ocean surface. We will see the Hurricane Center is going to use that in post-analysis to maybe, it's been the talk anyway, that Melissa may have even been stronger than 185 mile per hour maximum sustained winds. Absolutely wild stuff. Okay, enough about the tropics. We are moving on now into the winter side of things, and something that you may have heard of recently, sudden stratospheric warming. If you follow anybody, if you've seen the social media stuff, it's blowing up. Oh my gosh, we have sudden stratospheric warming. It's getting just as bad into the winter time as it is in the tropics. This means that we're going to have like the ice age coming, so to speak. Here's the deal. Sudden stratospheric warming events happen. They're, I would say, on occasion. It's about once every 3 years. We get the strong ones anyway, significant ones. Having one in November is actually pretty rare, so it is on the rare side. And it helps to disrupt the polar vortex. So you may have heard that. That's been a big buzzword probably since, I think, 2013. It's been around for a lot longer than that. I don't know when it started, or I don't know why it just started getting crazy in 2013. But anyway, what we're looking at here is the model forecast for the stratosphere. So we're talking 6 to 30 miles above our head. So way, way up there. Okay, I'm going to take the scrubber thing, and I want you to focus on this color here. Where we have the white and red color, that means that we have warmer than normal temperatures in the stratosphere. The blue and the purple and the green represent below normal temperatures in the stratosphere. So what happens is, as we take this out, this is going to be through November 21st, 23rd. You see it getting real like that. You see that kind of burst? We have a burst, and then we have a reinforcing shot there of that big kind of color of that peach or white or red. That's the model indicating that there is going to be sudden warming in the stratosphere. So literally what it's called is what it's doing. It's a sudden warming of the stratosphere. Now, what happens to that? It disrupts the polar vortex that is in the stratosphere. So when you hear about the polar vortex, a lot of times it is used incorrectly. So let me get you over to my polar vortex graphic here. And the couple of things before we get into the real big sciencey stuff tonight. It's not a storm. The polar vortex, not a storm. It is always there. It's just more prevalent in the wintertime. We have two of them. One hangs out in the North Pole, one hangs out in the South Pole. And again, they are more prominent in their respective hemispheres and their respective winter months. But it can be disrupted and send cold air south. So that's the thing here. It gets disrupted, and then once it does that, it gets all kind of out of whack. So we're going to go over to this view now, and to kind of show you almost like making a cake. The Earth's atmosphere is like a cake. I think I used the cake analogy for severe weather. I used the cake analogy for the layers. I guess I can use an onion too, but I like cake better than onions. Polar vortex resides at about 10 to 30 miles above the surface. Again, when the stratosphere suddenly warms, it can get disrupted. Now, 1 to 3 weeks later, that disruption or that perturbation of the disruption starts to trickle down towards the surface and then can disrupt the polar jet stream or polar vortex, the tropospheric polar vortex. We live in the troposphere. And then the cold Arctic air is allowed to dislodge and spill down. I have some kind of animations for this for you to go forward because it's a lot. It's a lot. So when the vortex is strong or stable, all of the real cold air is bottled up where it should be, over the Arctic, over northern Canada, and it's pretty warm across the lower latitudes where we live, okay? So that is when the vortex is strong. So now we have this sudden stratospheric warming event take place, and we have the disruption of the stratospheric polar vortex, and that eventually makes its way down to the troposphere. And then it becomes disrupted. The jet stream becomes very wavy. When the jet stream is wavy, that means that we have a lot of warm air surging south to north, and we have colder air surging north to south. We get storms, and we get the Arctic air to plunge a little bit further south than it typically goes. So when we have these significant stratospheric warming events in the stratosphere, Stratospheric, yeah. We can get these prolonged Arctic outbreaks. It doesn't always happen. That's the important thing to note. And there's also, Earth is a sphere. There's also several sides that the coldest of the air could plunge down. Sometimes it's over Europe. Sometimes it's over Canada and the United States. So that is stuff all to be determined. But typically, the impact occurs about 1 to 3 weeks after the main disruption in the stratosphere. So, if it does continue to look likely and we have the sudden stratospheric warming event over the next few days into Thanksgiving, then we're likely looking at a reinforcing shot of cold sometime in the middle of December. Now, one thing that we can already see, it does look like there's going to be another cold shot in the last day of November or the first couple of days of December, um, spilling down. That's kind of prior to the impact of this disruption. So we could be looking at a fairly cold December if this all holds. Again, the more, I don't want to say slam dunk, nothing's really ever a slam dunk, but the opportunity for the cold looks likely through the first few days of December. This is a little more uncertain, but whenever something like this happens, antenna goes up. All right, we might have some big time cold coming, especially to the eastern third or 2/3 of the country. So when the vortex is weak, again, brought on by that sudden stratospheric warming event, the colder air is allowed to come south a little bit more because that disruption in the stratosphere can make its way into the troposphere and really impact the polar jet stream and make it go crazy, sending a lot of cold and a lot of stormy weather to a lot of the eastern 2/3 of the country. But again, it's not always a guarantee. So it is important to note that. So, really, for us and really for everybody, when we see this happening, again, it's never a slam dunk until we get really, really close to that because it typically happens a couple weeks after the disruption, especially in the higher latitudes, dangerous wind chills with the coldest air. For us, we really I mean, we get some nasty wind chills as well, but we're really worried about those hard freezes, getting down below 28 degrees, things like that. And then, of course, damage to sensitive crops. We have a lot of sensitive flowers you may have in your backyard, all that stuff, that is really around and can really be hurt. And of course, we still have a lot of citrus that's a little further south these days. We have ferns, big time of the year for ferns. All of that stuff can be significantly impacted from a sudden stratospheric warming event that disrupts the stratospheric polar vortex that can trickle its way down to the troposphere where humans live. It's a lot of stuff for 9:47 at night. I appreciate you guys sticking with me. We're going to get a lot into the Central Florida forecast when it comes to the next few days. Coming up at News 6 at 10, if you're in your chair watching News 6 Plus, I always say it, keep it parked right there. There's no reason to move. We're going to be back with you live in about 10 minutes for the news. And of course, News 6 at 11, we're going to have more of the Central Florida forecast. I just wanted to really talk about all this stuff because it's out there. I want to let you know. So when you hear it, you know what is kind of happening. Melissa wants some rain soon. Unfortunately, I think that's at least a week away. We'll get into that a little bit coming up on the other side of this short break. Alrighty, guys, we are back with just a couple of minutes ago, just sending a push alert to the New 6 weather app with the story that'll come out in literally 2 minutes. I just need to select the story in there to attach to the push alert. So if you have the New 6 weather app, you're going to be able to read all about the new record and how that might go into being potentially deciding factor on if Melissa was in fact stronger than what we think right now. And it was 185. There's been a lot of people were saying, a lot of meteorologists and scientists that were watching this believe that it was stronger than 185. Of course, the hurricane hunters were in there. We have the measurements, but they were in the quote unquote weaker side of the eye wall, which is very, very hard to believe when that, I mean, it's mind blowing. Again, I said it just about 20 minutes ago, and I said it when we were tracking it. Hurricane Melissa is about the strongest storm Earth can physically conjure up. It just incredible in every single way, and unfortunately, that one had to hit land. Alrighty, guys, that about does it. I can't dance, guys, or else I would do the rain dance for sure. Looks like Golfing Ferdy wants some rain as well, likes to chill. Melissa, hope you're doing well tonight. Also, we talked a lot about you this evening. Of course, the hurricane side, but nonetheless. Alrighty, guys, thank you so much for being here. Really, really awesome for you guys to stop by and talk about this new record coming through. But just crazy stuff. ClickOrlando.com for more. You'll get that push alert if you have the New 6 weather app. It is a free download, by the way. Go download it. I'll see you in a couple of minutes on New 6 at 10 and at 11 o'clock on New 6 at 11. Have a great night, everybody. Be safe. And say stay cool, stay warm. We're pretty comfortable. I'll see you in a few minutes.